Welcome into Bucs Insider, coming to you from the Bucs studio, presented by Ticketmaster. Casey Phillips here with Scott Smith and Bri Dix, and man, what a week to be a Bucs fan. There have been so many incredible things that have happened, of whether it's the 5th straight year of making the playoffs, the 4 straight division titles, Mike Evans streak. I just feel like there have been so many amazing things to be excited about. A great time to be in Tampa, a great time to be a Bucs fan, and so we have a lot of really fun things to get to here. And I feel like there could have been a million storylines even just from that game. But I kind of wanted to start out with, of course, we all know Mike Evans and his streak deserves all the flowers, all the praise. But I want to talk about another wide receiver. I want to talk about Jaylen McMillan and what he's been able to do as a rookie, and specifically here in crunch time in these last few weeks. His 2 main plays there at the end of the game were just, truly game-saving in so many ways. And now 7 touchdown catches over 5 games. Leads the NFL during that span, ties him with Mike Evans and Jimmy Giles for the most in a 5-game span in team history. 5 straight games with receiving touchdown is the 2nd longest streak by a rookie in NFL history, behind Randy Moss. I just can't believe these stats I'm hearing about Jaylen McMillan. Again, things of as a rookie and then just as a whole across the league. And I think about the fact of that 32 and 33-yard catches to end the drive. And also the part that really stands out to me was the mental side for him, that he has the big catch in the big moment, then there's the penalty. And you could see where that is such a chance for someone to lose the confidence, lose the momentum, whatever that's going to be. To watch him be able to bounce back from that setback and still make another huge play, that to me is the true test of what a rookie's development has been like, both on and off the field, of for him to have the confidence in himself, for Baker to have the confidence in him to come back from that, and to be able to make that kind of a play in crunch time is truly amazing. And I talked about this on my show with Liam Cohen this week, which, by the way, if you haven't seen it, Liam gave a ton of really great things about the whole offense, Mike streak, Jaylen McMillan, a whole bunch of things, so definitely check that out. But I wanted to make sure we played this clip from Liam talking about Jaylen McMillan's growth this year.
Huge plays for us. J-Mac's just continuously taking the next steps each and every week, really since the bye week. This guy has come into this building in OTAs, minicamp, training camp, and have made a ton of plays. Really cool to see him be able to continue to do this and stay the course. Baker and he have always had a really good connection. Like from the moment that J-Mac came in this building, those two formed a connection, and it's starting to continue to take on. And in those moments, to make those plays on a 4th and 8 critical moment, then get the penalty thereafter, a few plays later, make a sideline toe drag swag catch in a critical moment with an unbelievable play by Baker. So great for those guys to have that moment, especially J-Mac being a rookie.
Yeah, I just think it's so great to hear how much everyone has confidence in his future, and it just looks so bright for Jaylen McMillan here.
He also got to be one of the first ones to congratulate Mike after the catch.
That's probably the best accomplishment so far, is I got to be there and be that guy that got to shout him out.
Funny side conversation there. I've been hearing a lot of conversations this week, and I hadn't thought about it on the day it happened, but is that catch by Mike Evans like a top 10 moment in Bucs history?
Yeah.
A lot of people are saying so.
I would agree with that.
I don't know how you could argue that it's not.
It was just, had he done it in the 3rd quarter, it would have been awesome and cool, and everybody would have just celebrated, but I don't think it would be.
The way it happened.
The way it happened is just amazing.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And so, I did want to shout out Jaylen McMillan, but of course, our rookie class in general, it's just incredible seeing what they've been doing down the line and down in crunch time, where a lot of times you hear about that rookie slump even as you get to the end of the season. They're not used to playing this long, and our rookies seem to be just hitting their stride, which is incredible. And of course, I feel like we just cannot talk enough about Bucky Irving and then the run game overall.
Yeah.
Here, I'll help you with that segue. They both, Bucky and Jaylen, both had 8 touchdowns this year, and the Buccaneers had the most touchdowns in the league from rookies.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool.
Not too shabby.
You hear a lot of times, don't you hear you've heard coaches say this, at this time of the year, in December, in crunch time, in the playoffs, it's great to have a good rush, a powerful, reliable rushing attack.
Right.
By transitive property, that also means it'd probably be pretty good at keeping the opponents from having a good, strong rushing attack, right? Well, the Buccaneers are heading into the playoffs as good as you could possibly be in that regard. This stat blows my mind. Since we came back from the bye after Week 11, so the last 7 games, the Buccaneers have outrushed their opponents by 124.5 yards per game.
That's outrageous.
That's outrageous.
That is crazy.
You would just like to have 124 rushing yards in a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
out-rushing them by 124.5. And Baker helps with some scrambles like this.
Yeah, not too shabby.
But the Buccaneers in that span are second, only behind Baltimore because they have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, and second in rushing yards per game with around 183. Let's see what's the exact number, 183.3. And first in rushing defense, allowing only 58.7 yards per game. That's how you get your 124.5 differential. And the Bucs have never had a streak like this in team history in terms of both rushing offense and run defense, and it really bodes well. I think Baker said it best. He was talking yesterday about the difference between this team going into the playoffs and his first Bucs team last year going into the playoffs, which was a good team and did win its first game and really kind of took Detroit down to the wire. But he said the big difference between this one and that one is the rushing attack. It's just, he says, when we've needed to run the ball, at the end of a game or something like that, when we really need to run the ball, we've been able to do so. And that's, obviously we didn't have that last year. The Buccaneers ranked last in both rushing yards per game and rushing yards per carry. And the difference between last year, I think around 3.44 yards per carry, last in the league, and this year, something like 5.25. It's the biggest year-over-year increase in rushing yard per carry average in the Super Bowl era.
Wow.
So no team has ever improved
Not too shabby.
since the Super Bowl started. And I think the only one that had a bigger one was like the Lions back in the 1930s or something like that. So
It's incredible.
Obviously you just showed Liam Cohen talking there, and we don't really want to,
Jinx it. Yeah.
Liam Cohen who?
Yeah, we would
Liam
rather
Cohen
people
who?
not realize all this, but you got to give him a lot of credit because that was a huge goal. He said right from the beginning, that's the number one goal, is to get this running game back on track, and I don't think you could have succeeded in more than that.
And I think also, when you talk about how this is a game of inches, people always say that, of like, if you can just even a little bit here and there, to have that dramatic of a difference in any stat is unbelievable. It feels like this is a sport where you hope to just get inches better, and they have gotten
yards.
Yards better.
It's a game of yards.
It's unbelievable. So I know also, you want to have the incredible run defense, and if you can also have that, which we've seen, you can also get some pressure on a quarterback. That is going to be a big deal. And there's one player who definitely, at least this last week, showed he is getting to that quarterback pretty well.
Yes, Yaya Diaby had an insane performance against the Saints, was named the NFC Defensive Player of the Week. He had a sack, 4 quarterback hits, and 4 tackles for loss. And I think one of the biggest things for him this year has just been kind of being able to harness that power, which is the coaches have talked about a lot, but also just being more active with his hands, worked on the long arm over the summer to kind of generate that separation at the point of attack. And his sack numbers may not wow. He has 4.5, but he's been able to have 20 quarterback hits, 13 run stuffs, and his pressure rate improved from 9.1% last year to 13.3% this year. And he has 57 quarterback pressures after only 26 last year. And he's one of just 8 edge rushers to record 50-plus pressures and 10-plus run stuffs. And he had a really big impact in Week 1 against the Commanders. Todd Bowles was relentless in pressuring Jaden Daniels. We'll see kind of what he does this week. But whether it was like the 6-man pressures, loading the box, 5-man, he sent safeties blitzing, he dropped guys, overloaded to one side. And Yaya Diaby had a lot of success and kind of has that short area burst to succeed on those twists and stunts. So I'm excited, and he could have another breakout game in the wild card round.
Yeah, congrats to him for that Defensive Player of the Week.
He's the first edge rusher for us to win that award since Shaq back in 2020.
Wow.
And a sack, statistically, in case somebody doesn't know, also counts automatically as both a tackle for loss and a quarterback hit. So usually when you see 4 tackles for loss and 4 quarterback hits, that means he probably had 3 or 4 sacks.
Yeah.
But in this case, only one of those was the result of a sack, because he had 1 sack, which is great. But that means he alternately had 3 quarterback hits on different plays and 3 tackles for loss.
It was everywhere.
So he was making an impact on a large percentage of plays, and he's done that throughout the year. It just has been hard to really notice because the sack numbers haven't been there.
Right.
But if you look at the Bucs pass rush this year, it's kind of like a gang. It's like coming in waves, and 7.5 for Kalijah Kancey is the best, right? That's our number one. But we have 6 guys with at least 4 sacks, and that ties for the most of any team in the league this year. So
Bringing
we don't
pressure
have
from everywhere.
we don't have a T.J. Watt right now or a Myles Garrett, but we have a lot of guys that can get there.
Which is great. As long as you get the total number of sacks, who cares
Doesn't
where it
matter
comes
who,
from?
yeah.
Yep. All right, so now, of course, injuries, that is the big question, as it has been all year. Normally we're like,
Yes.
by the time you get to the end of the season, this can really pile up. And it's like, well, this has just kind of been our year. So maybe it means
That's
we're
what Todd
ready
said.
going into the
That's what
playoffs to
Todd
know
said.
how to handle it. So tell me who we're going to be keeping an eye on. Are we getting people back? Wouldn't that be
Yes.
handy, just in time for the playoffs?
The big positive news this week, Antoine Winfield Jr. has been dealing with a knee injury. He was a full participant finally on Wednesday, and then Tyke Smith popped up on the injury report. He didn't practice in the walkthrough on Wednesday for personal reasons. And then a lot of limited participants. Levante David with a knee injury was limited. Cornerback Jamel Dean was limited. Logan Hall was a non-participant with a groin. Jaylen McMillan with that finger injury was full. And then K. Doughton was limited as well. So those will kind of be some of the guys to keep an eye on.
And that was a walkthrough, so those were all estimations.
Yes, yeah.
But so today will actually be an even better gauge
Indicator.
Of where,
But the Antoine Winfield news is really good news.
Yeah, that's
I-
a big deal.
I'm feeling like Cade's gonna, kind of force his
Just-
way back
yeah.
into the.
Yeah.
It's the playoffs.
I
Yeah,
think
you
he's
can't-
been itching to play for the last couple weeks.
I think that he was never okay with missing even a single
Yeah.
second. And now that it's playoffs, I feel like he's going to be like, fine, strap me up, send me on in a wheelchair, who cares?
I don't like that Levante one though. He's on the injury report every week because they give him rest.
Rest, yeah.
I've never
this
seen
had
him
a-
with the word knee by
Yep.
it, so that's not something I enjoyed seeing.
No,
but
that's-
hopefully it's not big deal.
It's not great. Okay, trivia time. Bree, what do we have?
In 2005, Tampa Bay famously beat Washington 36-35 when Mike Allstott converted a two-point conversion in the game's final minutes after the defense had jumped offside twice to try to block the kick. Who scored the touchdown that led to Allstott's two-pointer?
So I accidentally saw the answer, but the news is it wouldn't have mattered because I had about 3 or 4 guesses ready.
Joey Galloway.
No,
Probably
but that's
no.
okay.
And none were
Michael Clayton.
close.
That was one of them.
Alex
And
Smith.
that was the other one of
Okay.
them. And it's not those. So now when I saw the answer, I was like, well, at least I wouldn't have known, so it didn't matter that I ended up
Yeah.
seeing the
Hint,
answer.
Chris Sims through the pass. There's a hint for it.
There's a hint.
That was an incredible game, by
Yeah,
the way.
it sounded pretty incredible. I was like, man, how old were you, Bree?
Oh, stop it. Do we have to
You
always
love-
do
I
this?
know, it's my favorite game to play. Okay, so now milestones to keep an eye on. We know the big one happened last week,
yeah.
thankfully.
This is my part.
What other milestones are we keeping an eye on this year?
Yeah, obviously we had to talk about Mike Evans, and we mentioned it, but let's just spell it out just in case anybody doesn't know. With his last catch, he got to 1,004 yards in the season, which gives him 11 straight seasons of 1,000 receiving yards, which he already had the record for most of those to begin a career since he got to 7. But now he has tied Jerry Rice, the greatest of all time, for the most consecutive seasons like that in a row. And he also is second by himself now to Jerry Rice, who had 14 of those. So again, there's no debate any longer about whether Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
there's no debate.
Yep.
So the other thing was, I don't think it should have been. The attention was rightfully on,
Yes, on that
Mike
streak.
for that on that play for Mike, and it should have been. But what was funny is going into the game, Baker Mayfield needed 221 passing yards and at least 1 touchdown to become just the 10th quarterback in NFL history to have a 4,500-yard, 40-touchdown season.
Wow.
And the rest of the names are all the ones you would think: Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, etc., Dan Marino. So to join that list is cool. Before that last pass, Baker had 212 yards. He needed 221. What's 221 minus 212?
9?
9. And that was a 9-yard
No
pass.
way.
That was well, it was actually, Mike caught it only 1.6 yards past the line of scrimmage, but then turned upfield and got the rest. He got exactly, it just blows my mind that he got exactly 9 yards to get his record, which was the most important thing, but also this incredible milestone for Baker Mayfield.
I also wasn't aware there would be
Wow.
pop quiz on math, and I'm really glad I got it right. That would have been embarrassing.
You got it right.
I majored in words, not numbers,
That
everybody.
was pretty
Your
quick.
face looked blank.
It was just so funny. It's like I know the answer, but I was like, God, what if
Is
I get
it
it wrong?
9?
It's going to be really embarrassing.
Anyway, I found that incredible.
Yeah, that's truly incredible. So, we talked about a lot of stats for a lot of reasons and milestones and all of that stuff. But, normally this is where we talk about some fantasy things. Well, that's over. So we figured this is a good time for us to just make sure everyone knows how epic the stats have been this year, particularly for the Bucs offense. So I have been tasked with doing a Scott Smith impersonation.
Oh, no.
And reeling off a bunch of stats here for you. So Baker joined Tom Brady as the only QBs in team history to throw for 40 touchdowns in a season. And he finished the season establishing new career highs for himself in completions, completion percentage, passing yards, net yards per pass attempt, passing touchdowns, and passer rating. So Baker has had himself an unbelievable year, which is phenomenal. Now, let's get to the overall offense and team side. The team has a new single-season franchise record in completion percentage, passer rating, yards per rush, rushing first downs, rushing yards, third down conversion rate, and third down conversions. And then this season, the Bucs became the first team in NFL history, this is my favorite one, to complete 70% of their passes and average over 5 yards per carry throughout the course of an entire season. When you say the word balance, that is an offensive coordinator's dream.
Yeah.
That you are efficient, you are balanced, and I think that is an unbelievable set of stats. And so we just wanted to make sure everybody understood how incredible what they have done this year on offense has been. And we all know it's been fun to watch too, which is great, that it's not even a boring way of doing those things. We get all those fun stats, and then you got Baker stiff-arming people, and you got him lowering his shoulder, and I just love how fun, the Bucky making people miss. Like, it's efficient, but it's also electric, and that is everything you could want as a fan. So I just thought that was a really incredible thing to be able to focus on. What about you guys? Which of those stats stood out to you the
I
most?
liked how wide open that was for Cody to pick highlights, so he could throw in that one with Baker stiff arming.
Yes.
Nick Bosa.
You gotta throw that in there.
You got to use that one if you have the opportunity.
It was incredible. So now, Bri, I hit some of the big stats.
Yes.
How about we focus a little bit more on that run game? What did you find looking into that?
Well, and again, for people to understand, just for context, so we're not talking about a run game that was middle of the pack. I mean, we're talking about the last ranked unit in the NFL the previous 2 years, and the Bucs improved to 4th in 2024. And part of that obviously goes to Liam Cohen and the credit for the system and kind of the gap runs and how that's played into Bucky Irving's strengths, but it's also just the cohesion of the offensive line, the communication, the tight ends, the wide receivers, and all of these guys getting in on the blocking. But the Buccaneers rushed for 100-plus yards in 14 of 17 games this season, after doing so in just 9 of 34 games over the previous 2 seasons. Tampa Bay's 5.3 rushing yards per attempt this season set a new franchise record, as did the 2,536 total rushing yards. Bucky Irving had the highest forced missed tackle percentage in the NFL at 37.1%. and had 76 total missed tackles, the most among rookies. He had over 1,000 yards rushing, 1,500 from scrimmage. And this one from Next Gen kind of blew my mind, because just think about like his side. Bucky Irving is obviously not the biggest running back, so I think we kind of understand maybe some more of those outside runs. But he averaged over 5.5 yards per carry on rushes outside of the tackles, which is 5th most. And he averaged 5.3 on rushes inside of the tackles, which is 2nd most in the NFL.
So he's
for a
not
guy
only bouncing it outside.
That size. And only Irving, Saquon Barkley, and Jahmyr Gibbs averaged over 5 on runs in both directions.
Wow.
And he gained over 609 yards after forcing missed tackles, which is 2nd in the NFL to only Derrick Henry. As a rookie, that is unprecedented. And that's, I mean, I know the awards typically go to QBs and they get a lot of the credit, as they should. But, I mean, we're talking about a guy that has put up a performance that is Offensive Rookie of the Year caliber. No question.
When you brought up those other names, to your point of what you said about his size, how are those guys built, right?
Yes, I mean, you look at Derrick Henry's
you look at Derrick
form,
Henry, you look
and
at
you look
Saquon,
at Bucky Irving.
You look at Saquon Barkley's
Yes.
quads.
Size.
Like,
Yeah.
It's like
a tree trunk, essentially.
That's incredible. And then go ahead.
This has been a really good show if you like highlights.
Yeah,
We've had a
And
lot.
stats.
Yeah.
Highlights and stats.
I think we've had like our 10 best highlights.
it's great.
Plays,
We're
highlights
just
of
picking
the
all
year.
the best things.
Yeah.
And also, all right, so one other stat category we wanted to mention. If you have thought to yourself, man, second half seems to go pretty well for the Bucs lately, you would be right. Tell people how right they would be.
Well, I'm feeling not so great about myself here, because you had, I mean, I'm usually the stat guy, and you threw out all those. You had all these, and my category is the differential in scoring between the first and second half, scoring differential, and I forgot to bring my exact numbers down here.
Well,
But I can give you the most. Especially in the second quarter, the Buccaneers have been. Everybody knows the second quarter has been bad for us this year, right? The second quarter, the Buccaneers have been outscored by about 30 points, and in all other 3 quarters, they've outscored their opponents by around 100, so, or maybe like 130. So it's just in the second half, the differential is impressive, and that that's going to win you a lot of games at the end. But
yeah, and I know. Oh, go ahead.
the one number that blows me away, and it's not for the whole season, but it's for the last 5 games. the Buccaneers have allowed a total of 9 points in the second half of the last 5 games. 2 shutouts and 3 times where they just allowed a field goal. And the league average in that span of points allowed in that span in the second half is like 55.
And
That
that's
is
included,
insane.
even just in this last game, an interception and a muffed punt
Yes.
that put
Very
the
good.
defense in a very rough spot. And so it's not like even just each time they're getting to try to stop them all the way back from the 25 or 30 or 35 or anything like that. They're even starting in some rough spots.
That's a great point.
Still only allowing that, which is
Right.
incredible. And I just want to know what Todd Bowles is saying at halftime. I know a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago, he said that on my show, he said he had discussions with his DBs at the halftime. And I said, was it just you? Was it other players, other coach? He goes, nope, just me having some discussions. And I was like, well, I bet that was fun for everybody. But whatever they were, it worked.
Well,
so whatever
and
he's saying, it's happening.
The other part of it is the offense is keeping their offense off the field. In the second half in this last game against New Orleans, we had the ball for like 22 minutes in the second half. We had drives of 72 yards, of 84 yards, of 94 yards. So if they're not on the field, they can't score.
Yep.
But Casey's point is great. There was a sequence in that game with the interception and the muff punt, both of which led to possessions in the Buccaneers side of the field, and all they got out of that was 3 points. So incredible defense in that stretch.
That's amazing. All right, so now this is where we talk about something off the field. You know, we've done all these stats, all this X's and O's. We want to make sure you guys are staying up to date with everything that's happening on the off the field as well. So I have 2 big things to talk about. Really wanted to highlight our inside linebacker group. So the inside linebackers, led, of course, by Levante David, both on and off the field, the great leader that he is, donated 2 cars to local single moms. And it was just such an inspiring event. It got dusty outside for a minute there. There was a partnership that they also had with Metropolitan Ministries and Wheels of Success to kind of help make this happen. But these 2 single moms were there, and they also got up and thanked the players and talked about what this meant for them, and that this wasn't just a car, that it was hope. It was the idea of having the ability to get transportation to your job, get your kids places. I mean, it's just, a car is freedom, support, help, hope, all these things. They were very emotional. It was very amazing. And I just loved that our inside linebacker group took this upon themselves, that they really initiated this. They really instigated this, like that this was something near and dear to their hearts. And I just loved that even in the midst of it's such an important time on the field, they were like, it's still about more than this. It's still about more than football. And I thought that was really great. And then also I wanted to let everyone know, this is really exciting, that the Bucs announced this last week that the She Is Football Weekend is coming this next year. It will be the inaugural one. This is a brand new event, and it just sounds incredible. So the She Is Football Weekend, presented by J-Bill, is March 7th and 8th. The weekend will feature a women's career summit, a girls flag football tournament, a She Is Football 5K run, walk, and stroll, and a woman-owned business market. I mean, this is unbelievable. I am so excited about the idea of this event. I'm like, man, for a fan or just even any woman in the Tampa Bay area, how many incredible things to be a part of. And so registration for the 5K is now open with a discounted rate available for crew members. So make sure you jump on that. And if you want more info on that or just the weekend as a whole, we have buccaneers.com/sheisfootball. So again, buccaneers.com/sheisfootball for all of the information about that event, for a chance to be a part of it. You're not going to want to miss this first one, to be able to say you were there at the first year of this incredible event.
There's no dashes in there. It's just,
Nope, just She Is
football.
Football. All
Okay.
together, one word. So yeah, make sure you check that out. All right, so now it's time to get on to our playoff game. We are here. It is time to talk about the Commanders. So tell me, Scott, what stands out to you about the way that this team, I just think about week 1 when we beat them fairly handily. I don't feel like we understood that was an impressive win, it turned out.
They won 7 of their next 8.
Yeah. It's been incredible to watch them, the rise of the Commanders, the rise of their quarterback. It's just been incredible to watch what they've done over the course of the season. That this is going to feel different this time than week 1.
Nobody knew in week 1, as you said, that the Buccaneers had beaten what was going to be a 12-win team, and it was a remarkable turnaround. Dan Quinn probably thought so, but I don't think anybody thought the Commanders were going to rebound from a 4-13 season all the way to 12-5. That's a remarkable turnaround. And if you think about it, the fact that they were 4-13 is why they were picking second overall in the draft, and why they wisely took Jayden Daniels, the rookie quarterback out of LSU. And he had a Pro Bowl season. What an incredible season he had. Against us, he ran for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he didn't throw any. He completed like 2/3 of his passes and didn't throw any interceptions. So it was a fine debut, but he's only gotten better ever since. So the way they went from 4-13 to 12-5 is they picked the right quarterback, and then they really went on a spending spree, but not the top level of the free agent market. They just brought in all these veterans that you've heard about that maybe are in the latter halves of their careers. And we've seen teams try this before, and it doesn't work. You try to remake your whole roster through free agency, it often doesn't work, but it did. They got Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, Jeremy Chin, Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler. They traded for Marshawn Lattimore. On offense, they signed Tyler Biadasz from the Cowboys to play center. They added Zach Ertz, who's had kind of a rejuvenated season, and it's just all worked out. And it's all and it's all come together because Jaden Daniels had such an incredible rookie season, and I think everybody has talked about, rightfully so, even in the first game against us, just the innate poise and calmness in key moments. And you know how much we loved what he did against Atlanta in Week 17. He's just come up huge in clutch moments all season. And so, we're facing a rookie quarterback, yes, in the first round, but I don't think we can treat him as a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
And it's going to be quite an effort to stop him. He led the NFL in scramble yards with 548. That was like 170 more than Lamar Jackson, for goodness sake. So, he also had a 100.1 passer rating, by the way, with 25 touchdown passes. So it's going to be quite a challenge.
Yeah, and not only can he beat you in a few different ways just kind of by himself, but he does have some decent weapons. I figured he's gotten a lot of the attention, but I wanted to highlight who some of those people are that he can go to as well. That for one thing, Brian Robinson been a decent back for them. He's rushed for 800 yards, and then Austin Eckler has missed some time with an injury, but there's a chance he might be back, and he is going to be back, and we'll see kind of how much they rely on him, Brian Robinson, what that looks like, but that's a pretty decent two-headed little monster back there. And then Terry McLaurin, I mean, he went over 1,000 yards, which I think we all now appreciate the challenge of doing that, after watching Mike Evans do it. And their second leading receiver by yards is 34-year-old Zach Ertz. You talked about how he's had a bit of a resurgence of a year, but I went back and looked at Week 1, and I was excited to see that we held Ertz to 28 yards and McLaurin to 17 yards. Ooh. Which is also wild that he ended up with 1,000 when already Week 1 he only had 17. But I thought that was really encouraging to see that Week 1, and also if you remember, if my memory serves me right, Week 1 is when we lost like all the corners. That by the end of the game we were having to shuffle around different people. That was when we ended up having several injuries that very first game. That a bunch of people ended up going down because I think that was when maybe Zion got a concussion or there were just a bunch of different things that happened. So I was really excited to see that we still held them to that, and it'll be interesting to see how Coach Bowles attempts to do that again of, is Jamel healthy, and do you, how do you try to contain Jaden Daniels, not also let these other guys beat you, which is going to be interesting. So we talked a lot about their offense for good reasons, but Bri, tell me a little bit about their defense and what stands out to you.
Their run defense has struggled. It ranks 30th in the NFL, and then they've allowed the most yards before contact in the NFL at 2. So basically meaning their defensive line is losing the battle in the trenches, opposing offensive lines able to get push, and then they've also allowed the second most explosive runs to opposing teams. So hopefully that's something that the Bucs can exploit on Sunday, and Rachaad White, Bucky Irving, Sean Tucker can have a big game. And some of the kind of things in the open field has been their cornerbacks have been a little deficient in some of the open field tackles, and obviously with Bucky Irving having his prowess at making that first person miss, I would definitely place my bets on number 7 on Sunday.
Watching those highlights, though, I think that those bad rush defense numbers might have something to do with facing Saquon Barkley twice and Derrick Henry.
Yeah, it's not great.
It hasn't exactly been
Their
an easy
defense is
road.
like, give us a break, guys. That's what we're supposed to do. All right, it is time for our answer to the trivia question. Scott, what do we got?
So in 2005, Tampa Bay famously beat, nope, that's the question. Let me read the answer, because you already read the question.
I did.
With a minute left in the game, Chris Sims hit wide receiver Edel Shepard on a 30-yard touchdown pass that cut Washington's lead to 35-34. I can still picture it. He actually, it was like are we going to see it? It's like a diving catch as he crosses the goal line.
Again, look at the highlight crew today.
I can't believe we got this.
It's not the name I had in mind.
Oh, it wasn't a diving catch. Oh, there was a little bit of controversy whether he completed that catch, I remember. See how it kind of looked like it moved a little bit there at the end?
I wasn't going to say anything, but yeah.
And then, so what happened was, it's 35-34 now, and Washington jumps off sides and blocks the extra point, gets a penalty, so we try again. They jump off sides again, and so that John Gruden at that point says, whatever.
Yeah.
Take the penalty, move it to the 1, go for 2.
Whatever.
And everybody, what does Raymond James Stadium hold? Like 65,000?
Yeah.
And then maybe another 1,000 people in support. 66,000 people knew Mike Allstott was getting that ball, including the 11 players on defense.
And it didn't matter.
And he still got it over the line barely. Unfortunately, the rematch that year was in the playoffs, and Washington won that game 17-10, despite the Buccaneers' top-ranked defense holding them to 120 yards.
Wow, that's incredible.
And Washington yesterday put out a little tweet with the highlight of a 51-yard fumble return for a touchdown in that game, saying, "Look what happened last time we played a playoff game in Tampa."
Wow.
Yeah, that's also the last time they won a playoff game, but who's counting?
Counting.
Who's counting?
All right. Well, that is going to do it for us on this show, and we hope we are back here next week talking about another win and another playoff game. So we'll see you then, and enjoy this playoff week.